Donald Trump is not only on track to secure the Electoral College victory, but he is also positioned to potentially win the national popular vote. This is significant because no Republican has won the popular vote since George W. If it in 2004. The possibility of Trump winning both the Electoral College and the popular vote underscores the magnitude of his current lead and how the political landscape has shifted over the last few years. While Kamala Harris still technically holds a slight 0.9 lead in the national polling averages, her advantage is vanishing fast. In fact, 4 out of the last 5 national polls now show Trump leading, signaling that Harris's narrow lead is likely to evaporate as the final days of the election approach. One of the key areas where Trump has seen considerable strength is in the Sun Belt, a region that has become increasingly important in recent presidential elections. We'll start with Texas, which, though it has long been a Republican stronghold, has seen closer margins in recent elections. In 2020, Trump won Texas by only 5 percentage points. Surprisingly weak showing for a Republican in a state that traditionally delivered large margins for the GOP. However, this time around, things are different. Trump is expected to win Texas by a double-digit margin in 2024, potentially even outperforming his 2016 margin of 9 points. Texas remains one of the most reliably Republican states, and no Democrat has carried it since Jimmy Carter in 1976. With that in mind, it's safe to say that Texas is firmly in Trump's column for this election. The state is likely to remain a Republican bastion, and Trump's stronger performance this time around only reinforces that fact. Moving over to Florida, another critical state in the Sun Belt, we see a different but equally significant story. The last time Florida voted for a Democrat was in 2012 when Barack Obama won the state. Since then, however, Florida has taken a noticeable turn to the right. Trump carried the state by 1/10 in 2016 and then increased his margin to over 3 in 2020. In 2024, Trump is expected to win Florida by a much larger margin, somewhere between 7 and 10 percentage points. Florida has been a crucial battleground in past elections, but this year it's leaning heavily Republican. The GOP's dominance in the state was further solidified in 2022 when Governor Ron DeSantis won re-election by a staggering 19-point margin. While the presidential race will likely be closer than DeSantis's landslide victory, there's little doubt that Florida will stay in the GOP's column this year. Trump's lead here is solid, and it's hard to see how Harris could reverse the tide in the Sunshine State. But before we get into the details, hit the subscribe button, like this video, and leave your thoughts in the comments. Thank you for your support. Now that Texas and Florida are all but assured for Trump, we're left with 13 of the most competitive states on the electoral map. These states are crucial because they will ultimately decide who wins the White House. Out of these 13 states, 4 in the upper Midwest, 7 are in the Sun Belt, and 2 are in the Northeast. Additionally, there's the 2nd Congressional District of Nebraska, which awards a single electoral vote, but this district alone is unlikely to be a decisive factor in the outcome. Even if Harris manages to win Nebraska's 2nd district, it won't make much of a dent in Trump's growing lead. Let's now turn our attention to the states that are leaning in Kamala Harris's favor. I'll start with Colorado and New Mexico. These 2 states have become Democratic leaning in recent years, but they are expected to be much more competitive in 2024 compared to previous elections. In 2020, Joe Biden won both Colorado and New Mexico by double-digit margins. But this time around, Harris is expected to win them by significantly smaller margins, somewhere between 3 and 7 percentage points. The fact that these 2 states, which were once solidly blue, are now competitive shows how much the political landscape has shifted in this election cycle. Colorado and New Mexico are still leaning Democratic, but the races will be much closer than they were 4 years ago. The same trend can be seen in other traditionally blue states. For example, Biden won New York by 23 points in 2020, but Harris is projected to win it by only around 13 points in 2024. Similarly, Maine, which typically leans Democratic, is also becoming more competitive. In 2016, Hillary Clinton won Maine by just 2.9 points, and in 2024, Harris is expected to win it by a similarly narrow margin. This tightening of the race in traditionally blue states is a reflection of the broader national trend. Trump's momentum is pushing many states that were once safely Democratic into more competitive territory. When we add up all the solid likely and lean Democratic states, Kamala Harris is projected to have just 198 electoral votes, far short of the 270 needed to win the presidency. And on the other hand, Donald Trump is already 219 electoral votes, and we haven't even factored in the lean Trump states yet. As we move into the battleground states that are expected to go for Trump, it becomes clear that Harris is facing an uphill battle. Now, let's look at the lean Trump states. Those where Trump is expected to win by a margin of 2 points or more. These are some of the most competitive states on the map, but many of them are trending solidly in Trump's direction as Election Day approaches. Instead of seeing closely contested races in traditional battlegrounds like Pennsylvania or North Carolina, we are now seeing competitive races in states like Minnesota and Virginia, which Biden won handily in 2020. Yeah. In North Carolina, for example, Trump leads by 0.5 in the polling average. North Carolina has been a key swing state in the last few elections, but it's becoming more reliably red. Trump won North Carolina by 3.7 in 2016 and by 1.3 in 2020. And in 2024, he is projected to win the state by around 4 to 5 points. North Carolina has consistently voted Republican in recent presidential elections, and that trend is expected to continue this year. Next, we have Georgia, where Trump is currently leading by 1.8 in the polls. Georgia was one of the closest states in the 2020 election, with Biden narrowly winning by just 0.24. This was the first time a Democrat had won Georgia since Bill Clinton in 1992, but it appears that the state is swinging back toward the EBP. Trump won Georgia by over 5 points in 2016, and he is expected to win it again in 2024 by a margin of 3 to 4 points. Georgia, like North Carolina, is becoming more of a Republican-leaning state. Arizona is another state that Biden flipped in 2020, making him the first Democrat to win the state since the 1990s. However, Trump is now leading in Arizona by 1.6 in the polls. Historically, polling in Arizona has tended to overestimate Democratic support, so it's likely that Trump's actual margin of victory will be larger than the polls suggest. Trump won Arizona by 3.5 points in 2016, and in 2024, he is expected to win it again by a margin of 3 to 4 points. Nevada is another state that is shifting back toward the GOP. Trump currently leads by 0.8 in Nevada, and the state is expected to lean Republican this year. Nevada was once a reliably red state, voting for George W. Bush in both 2000 and 2004, but it has trended Democratic in recent elections. However, Trump is on track to be the first Republican to win Nevada in 20 years, reflecting the broader national shift toward the GOP. In the upper Midwest, Trump is expected to sweep the Rust Belt states, a devastating blow for Kamala Harris's campaign. Harris needs to win all 3 of the key Rust Belt states, Pennsylvania, Michigan, and Wisconsin, to block Trump from reaching 270 electoral votes, but Trump is currently leading in all 3. In Pennsylvania, Trump leads by 0.7. The polls in the state is seen as crucial for both candidates. Trump has repeatedly said that if he wins Pennsylvania, he will win the election, and he's not wrong. Pennsylvania is one of the most important states in this election, and Trump is projected to win it by around 3 points. In Michigan and Wisconsin, Trump is also leading. He leads by 1.2 in Michigan and by 0.2 in Wisconsin. These 2 states, along with Pennsylvania, tend to vote together, and given Trump's strong performance in the Midwest, it's likely that all 3 will go for him in 2024. Trump is expected to win Michigan and Wisconsin by just over 2 points each. With the Rust Belt states leaning toward Trump, Kamala Harris's path to victory becomes much narrower. We're now left with just 3 states and 1 congressional district. Harris is expected to narrowly win Nebraska's 2nd district, and she's also expected to win New Hampshire by about wee. However, the final 2 states, Minnesota and Virginia, are much more competitive than they were in 2020. Biden won Minnesota by 7.1 points and Virginia by 10.1 points, but both states are now toss-ups. Trump is in a strong position to win both, especially if he continues to perform well in the national popular vote. If Trump wins the popular vote by a significant margin, it could be enough to swing both Minnesota and Virginia in his favor. At this point, it's clear that Donald Trump is on track for a decisive victory. With Trump leading in the popular vote and winning key battleground states, he is projected to finish with 335 electoral votes to Kamala Harris's 203. This would represent a dramatic shift from 2020, where Biden won with 306 electoral votes. If Trump wins the popular vote, it will be a major accomplishment for the GOP and a sign of how much the political landscape has changed in just 4 years. Thank you for joining me in this in-depth analysis of the 2024 election. If you found this breakdown helpful, don't forget to comment, and subscribe for more detailed political coverage. I'll continue to keep you updated as the final results come in and we witness the unfolding of this historic election.